Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. I am Mr. Kadim Khan and I am a lecturer in the Institute of Computing, Kuwait University of Science and Technology. Today we will take lecture number 30 of the subject of software quality engineering, in which we will discuss the project tracking for software quality. Dear students, we need to track the project. Project tracking is exactly like observing the project, that whether the project is making the progress or not. So here in this lecture, we will thoroughly discuss the project tracking used for software quality adaptation. This is the discussion agenda. It contains the topics of the project tracking, reasons for late project, that why the projects are always late, solution to previously listed problems, then what are their solutions if the project should not be late, objectives of the project tracking, why do we need to track the projects, key aspects of continuous risk management. And in the risk management, there is also one aspects of project tracking. Then we have four different examples where we need the project tracking. How do we track the projects? Here we will provide you the mechanism for tracking the software projects, and follow up means that after uh, performing this process, what should be followed up here, and what the CMMI says on the software project tracking. Now, project tracking is required because we want the progress of the project and we want to observe the project. Now, why we need project tracking? That why should we track a project that is underway? And what aspects of the project needs to be tracked? So here we will answer these two important questions in this lecture. Reasons for late projects. There are three important reasons that always the project may be late. The number one is overly optimistic scheduling. So sometimes the project manager estimates badly the scheduling process for the software project. So during the planning and proposal writing, the software project manager do not provide the exact estimation of the software project. That's why always software project get late. Number two, tardy identification of schedule and budget problems. So sometimes the schedules is tardily identified, and also the budget problems are identified with some problematic way. So noticing that too late that we are late. So when we are too late, that means that we are always late. And also the third reaction to important events. Sometimes we do not react to the important events that are occurring on the proper deadline. So we do not respond them well, which is the bad risk management, and it always creates the scheduling problems. Due to that reasons, the projects are always late. Now, what are the solutions to the previously listed problems? The first solution is the better estimation, but it depends on the skills and expertise of the project manager. That software project manager is unable to estimate with the better fashions, and they are unable to estimate with corrections. So that's why the project always gets late. And the second one is the better project tracking. So to complete the project on time, we always need the better project tracking. We need to track each and every phase of the software project. Then the project will be completed on time. Now, the objectives of project tracking is the short-term and long-term objectives. In short-term objectives, the early detection of irregular events helps us to track the project. So when we detect the early or irregular events, then the projects can be tracked easily. Early detection of irregular events means that sometimes we detect some irregular events, and these events are not regularly performed. For example, sometimes the testers have to test each and every individual components of the software during the development, but the tester waits for the final products or for the final units. Then that will delay the project. So the project tracking requires that all the irregular events should be detected, and they are the short terms in fact the project tracking. While the long term project tracking means that creation of previous preventive actions and also improvement of estimation accuracy, that we have to take the preventive action regularly, and also we have to improve the estimation accuracy, and that is the key skills of the project manager. What do we need to track? First of all, the project schedule is required to track the project. So project schedule means that are we are hitting the milestones on times? That means that we are providing the milestones on the times to the customers or the milestones to the another stakeholders. For example, the designer has to provide all the designing components on time to the developers. Then the developers will perform his or her task regularly or on the project on the proper schedule. So what about the critical path milestones? Basically, the critical path is a certain path in the charts where all the resources and activities are streamlined. And then, when the critical path is executed, all the activities will be completed on time. Second one is the risk. We need project tracking because we want to resolve the risk. The risks are that factors which can affect the quality, cost, or schedule of the projects, and what might happen, how likely is the problem, and what can should we do. So the risks are basically certain problems, and that can happen anytime. And also the likelihood is the problem here. How likely is the problem means that what is the probability of the occurrence of the risk, and what can should we do. So what should we do when the risk occurs? How what sort of the preemptive methods are used here, and how we will resolve the risk before even that it is better to resolve the risk before occurring the risk. And resources also we need to track. The resources contains the humans as well as the cost resources, that is the budgets. The human resources are those resources which will be used for tracking. For example, project manager and team lead is required to track the project. And similarly, the budget means that the difference cost, that is the money cost requires to track the project. What are the key aspects of continuous risk management? When the risk occurs, the project manager is responsible to take some important steps to resolve the risk. The steps includes identifications of the risk, means that all risks should be continuously identified and asked that what is going on wrong here. And analysis means that continuously asking that this risk is no a potential risk, or it is a catastrophic risk, or it is in fact the medium or low priority risk. So analysis means that we will categorize the risk according to their effectiveness. Then we will plan the risk, means that here we have to perform certain plans in order to resolve the risk. So here developing mitigation approaches for the most critical risks, and their plan is drawn here. Next one is very much important, that is the track. So we will track the mitigation plan and risk management plans here. So tracking here means that we will observe the risk continuously and in the iterative fashion so that that problem should not arise in the future or in the near future as well. Next one is to control the project. The controlling the risk here means that make decision based on data that this in fact the project should be continued or it should be stopped. Next one is to communicate. Communication is very much important in which we have to make sure that free flow of information throughout the project should be conducted. So communication should be conducted on regularly and it should be either formal or informal. Now here are different examples which will help us at how the project tracking is very much important. For example, if you notice that the designs, implementation and testing, which are three different tasks here, and similarly of the database component is running about a week behind, means that design, implementation and testing of a certain database system is running behind a week. So what are the in fact what we should do to resolve certain schedules problems? So instead of 1 week for each of these three tasks, the database task will take a total of the 4 weeks because 1 week, second week, third weeks, and then the database component will be developed because database component is depending on the designs, implementation, and testing. So that's why overall the database component requires the 4 weeks. However, database can be a week late because it is not on a critical path. Means that it is not on depending path. So that's why database can be just a week delay here. So any potential problems is here because the potential problem is because of the proper project tracking. There is no project tracking, so that's why different components are late here. Second one is the another examples here. For example, the task of testing the database is required. Now estimation duration for the testing of the database is 3 days. Now we need the required resources for conducting this testing, and the resources include the database requirement specification, means that all database implementation source code of that particular database. It includes different sort of the queries as well as the views, real data from the customers, the SRS data from the customer. Based on that data, the database was created and the test persons that has a database test certificate and the person who will perform the database testings and he has a specialty in the database testing. So all these four are resources required to perform the database testing. So any special scheduling or tracking issue is there? That is quite simple. There is no certain issues here because if all the resources are available with us, then the process will proceed smoothly. But still we need requires the tracking here. So tracking is very much useful, which streamlines each and every activities of the software development. This is another example. Here, the initial unit testing reports indicates a bug rate of 4.5 per thousand line of codes. So that means that about 4.5 bugs are occurring in every 1,000 line of codes in the unit testing. So should you be concerned here? Of course, we need to be concerned. It depends on the error severity as well. So further checking finds that when another review has done and further testing has been performed, then the average initial bug rate is 3.1 per kilos line of course. So that means that 3.1 is in fact about 3 or more than 3 errors per 1,000 line of codes has been identified. So now standard deviation is 0.5 here. That means based on statistical informations, the standard deviations of these errors are 0.5. Weighted rate is also higher than the average. Means that the weighted rate here of the errors is also too much higher than the average. Now what should we do? That what should action we have to take here? So that answers will be provided here in the next slides here. And another example says that when we develop a software, suddenly the programmer has obtained or received an emails and indicating that the changes is required into the user interface of a software system, and that is based on the demo that is provided to the customers during the prototyping. So changes are now required here. The changes will requires a good amount of coding. So any software quality assurance task necessary here? What are your suggestions here when suddenly you receive a phone call or an email from the customers that the user interface changes are required here? So then what you will do here is, do you will re-implement the software from the scratch, or you have to perform some necessary changes? So best is here to perform the tracking. Now, how do we track the project? Simply by using certain tools used for tracking here, and tools can be the critical path, which is a graph plotted during the scheduling. There is certain critical paths, and the path is that one which identify the resources and tasks used for the resources, and then that is the in fact the best path for scheduling the project. Tools can track the budget as well. There are multiple tools who perform the budgeting for us, and these tools help us to correctly estimate the budget because they compare this project with the previous similar projects, and then they in fact schedules are the estimations for scheduling as well as estimating the budget. So our tools can alert you to potential resources conflicts as well, because if there are certain resources conflicts and the resources are already hired by the another task, then there will be a certain wait will be here, and you need to wait for the resources. So that's why deadlocks will appear here. The next tool used for the project tracking is the status report. The status report is a formal or informal document which tells us about each and every phase of the project status. So that is also very much important. Now, follow up here means that after the project tracking, we need to follow up, and the follow up means that audit the tracking procedure, that whether our tracking is also correctly performed, or is there any problems in software project tracking. For this purpose, we have to ask from ourselves that are we really seeing what is going on? Are we sure that what are different steps we are performing? Are the progress report reporting the important informations? Means that the progress reports is in fact is accurate and are of high standards or not? Are we tracking what needs to be tracked? So what important features we need to be tracked when we develop the software project? Are we talking to the right people, means that the people who provides us the feedback during the tracking? Are we talking to the right people, are the concerned people who have developed the project? Are we are developing the right the different phases of the project? So these are the questions we must have to ask from ourselves while we are performing this project tracking. CMMI on the project tracking. CMMI also has a standard procedure for project tracking. CMMI is the capability maturity model integration and is used as a standard for software projects. So the purpose of software project tracking and overall site is in fact provides an adequate visibilities into actual progress, which will lead us for the management and to take effective actions when the software project is performance deviates from significantly from the software project plans. So when we track the project and we think that the software project is deviating from its actual progress, then we need to take the serious actions there. Now, at times, the actual results and performances are tracked against the software plans. Means that we have to track the actual results and the performance against that particular plan that has been drawn by the project manager. Corrective actions are taken and managed and to closure when the actual results of the performance deviates significantly from the software plans, and then we need to take certain corrective actions which will make the correction in the software project. And thirdly, changes to the software's commitments are agreed to by the affected groups and the individuals. So changes will be required which are agreed by the all stakeholders, and then the changes should be conducted there. CMMI on the project tracking. Ability to perform. These are the guidelines of the CMMI on the project tracking. So when these guidelines will be available, means that they are properly implemented, then the project tracking has the ability to be performed. Number one, a software development plan for the software project is documented and approved. So it means that when we have a good plans about the software project tracking, and that document must be approved as well from the project manager. Number two, the project software manager explicitly assigns responsibilities for software work products and the activities. So all the activities and work products and other responsibilities should be explicitly assigned by the software project manager to the different software engineers. 3. Adequate fundings means that the right fundings and all the resources are provided for tracking the software project. Means that here must be a full-fledged funding and other resources required to track the software project. The software managers are trained in the managing the technical and personal aspects of the software project. So software project manager should also be trained and they have a full knowledge about the tracking the software project. It means that the software project manager must be trained well in managing the technical and personal characteristics of the software project. And the final one, that the first line software manager receive orientation in technical aspects of the software project. Means that those people who are the first line project manager. The first line project manager means that those managers who are acting as a team lead to different teams who are responsible for developing the project. For example, the requirement analyst have different team leaders. Similarly, the designers are the set of designers have different software managers. Similarly, programmers have different software manager, and so on, the tester as well. So all these software manager must be well trained, and they must receive their orientations in the technical aspects of the software project which are going to be developed. Now, activity performed here. So CMMI on the project tracking is make sure that all these activities should be performed here. So a document software project plan is used for tracking and software activities and communicating status. So we must have a proper documents here which will be used for the planning as well most importantly for tracking the software activities, and also will act as a communication medium between different stakeholders. Number two, the project software development team is revised according to the documented procedures. So all the software development plans should be revised according to the different documented documents which have a procedures to performing these activities. So all the plans should be revised according to the documents. Now, and the document must contain different procedures which will be used to conduct the completion of the software projects here. Next is number 3. Software project commitments and changes to the commitments made to individuals and group external to the organization are revised with the senior management according to the documented procedures. So here all the activities that are required and all the changes in these activities should be confirmed with the documented procedures in the software development organizations. Number 4, approval changes to the commitment that affects the software projects are communicated to the mm, members of the software engineering groups and other software related groups. So it means that all the changes that are required in the software developments should be communicated to the members of the software engineering groups and other software related groups. Means that all the team should be properly communicated with the documented changes, and these changes should also be reflected with the other documents as well. So number 5, the size of the software work procedure or size of the software to the software work products are tracked and corrective actions are taken as necessary. So all the tracking should be performed here, and whenever any problem is identified during the tracking procedure, then the corrective actions should be taken here. Means that all the problems should be resolved immediately after the tracking. Means that, for example, if we are performing the designs and during the designs we have tracked that the UML's components are not interfacing with each other, then immediately we should take the corrective actions. So we should not just dump them in the piles of papers, but we have to take the on the spot decisions to make a corrective actions that will be required for that particular activities. Number 6, the project software's efforts and cost are tracked and the corrective action taken as necessary. So the project software efforts means there are different people responsible for performing that particular task, and the cost should be tracked as well. Means that the efforts required to performing the tracking as well as the cost required to performing the tracking should also be tracked, and the correctional action should be taken if there are any issues in the software um, efforts and the cost of tracking. And the project's critical computer resources must be tracked and corrective actions should be taken as necessary. It means that, which is number 7 points, that all the resources required for the tracking, they also be tracked. And if there are certain defective components or certain other equipments which are not working during the tracking, then the corrective action should be taken here. Number 8, the project's software schedule is tracked and the corrective actions are taken as necessary. So, like the cost and efforts required to complete the project, similarly, the project schedule of tracking should also be tracked, that whether we are following the schedules for tracking or not, and the corrective action should be taken here. Number 9, software engineers' technical activities are tracked and corrective action are taken as necessary. So all sort of technical activities during tracking should also be tracked, and if there are certain technical mistakes in during the tracking task, then the corrective action should be taken there immediately. Number 10, the software risks are associated with the cost, resources, and schedule and technical aspects of the project should be tracked here. During the tracking, it is possible that the risks may be identified here. So the risks are certain factors which affect cost, resources, schedules, and most importantly, the quality of the project here. So these risks should be tracked as well. Number 11, actual measurement data and planned data for this software project should also be recorded. So during the tracking, actual measurement data, that is the different metrics required for the calculation purpose, and also replanning data for the software project also should be recorded in the document, as well as they must be recorded in a certain soft file as well. Software engineers are the groups which are conducted periodic internal reviews to track the technical progress plans and the performance, and other issues against the software development plan should also be tracked. So there are software engineering groups which are only responsible for the different periodic internal reviews. The periodic internal reviews are those reviews which are conducted inside in the internal of the organizations, and they will be the periodic. So these should also be tracked, and the plan, progress and performance and other important issues should also be tracked for the reviews. And number 13, which is the last point suggested by the CMMI on the project tracking, is that formal reviews to address the accomplished and results of the software projects are conducted at selected project milestones according to the documented procedure used for the software project. So here, all the formal reviews, that are the reviews which are provided formally either by the software project manager or from the review provided by the third party, as like the CMMIs or the ISO standard parties. These parties tracking should also be tracked, or their results or the observation about the project should also be tracked there. Now, dear students, this is the end of the lectures. This is the book, which is very good book for reference purpose. The book is Software Quality Assurance from Theory to the Implementation, written by the Daniel Gallen. You should study these books, and if you have any questions, you can ask the questions through the email. My email is m.kadim@kust.edu.pk. Also, anyone can ask the questions because these slides are available globally. So you can ask any questions related to these topics, and also you can ask any question related to any topics of the computer science, and I will answer you surely. Thank you very much.